Let's say that you want to explore borrowing as a form of funding for your business. Let's get something out there right away. You may have heard from others, parents, family, friends, that debt is bad. We want to make sure that we explore why people say this so that you can decide for yourself if you want to pursue this form of financing, and perhaps more importantly, when would it make sense to borrow? Let's start with the basics of how this form of funding works. For debt, you receive some amount of money today and you pay back more money later. The amount that you receive today or whenever you borrow is called the proceeds. You are required to pay that back. In addition, because you're using the money for some amount of time, you will need to pay rent on the money, and this is called interest. Here are some examples. First example, you receive $900 today and you pay the lender back $1,000 in 1 year, of which $900 is technically called the principal payment, and the rest, $100, is the interest payment. Second example, you receive $10,000 today, and you pay $1,000 a year from now, then $11,000 2 years from now. So in this example, the proceeds are $10,000, which you pay back in 2 years. The additional $1,000 you pay each year would constitute the interest payments. Some of you will notice that the interest charge on a percentage basis is 10% per year. Third example, you borrow $100,000 for 3 years, but rather than pay only the interest during the 3 years and then the entire $100,000 exactly 3 years from now, you want to make 3 equal payments at the end of the next 3 years and have the loan entirely paid off at the end of that horizon. The lender is going to charge you a 10% rate of interest. This situation is going to be more complex because you want to pay the loan down over time. So instead of paying 10% times $100,000 or $10,000 interest each year, then the total at the end, you want to pay more than $10,000 each year so it gets paid down. So fast forward 1 year. Let's say you make a payment to the lender of $40,000. Now $10,000 of this will indeed count towards interest. Then the remainder of your payment, $30,000, will be applied toward the outstanding balance of the loan. Since the loan started with $100,000 at the very beginning of the year, we will now be left with $70,000 of debt at the end of the first year. Now comes the fun part. The lender will charge you interest for that second year only on what you are borrowing the second year, which now stands at $70,000. So the interest they will charge you the second year will be $7,000. $70,000 times 10%. So at the end of the second year, you make another $40,000 payment, same as the first year. But now only $7,000 will be charged for interest, so $33,000 will be applied toward the outstanding balance of the loan. Since the loan started the year at $70,000, we will end the year, after our second payment, with an outstanding loan balance of $37,000. Now we're heading into the third year, and our loan balance is $37,000. We are now going to be charged 10% interest on that amount, translating to $3,700. So as of the end of the third year, you will owe a total of $37,000 plus the $3,700 interest for a total of $40,700. You pay off the loan by making a final payment of $40,700. So to sum, you paid $40,000 payments for each of the 3 years, plus a little more that third year. As an aside, if you wanted to make exactly the same payments each year, it would be $40,211 per year. But we don't need to be that detail-oriented today. Okay, let's back up a bit. The first 2 examples were pretty straightforward, and those are generally how loans work. This third example, the complicated one, is called an amortizing loan, which is used for things like cars and houses, and sometimes asset-based lending for a business. We've been in the weeds a bit, so let's take a wider look now that we understand some of the gory details related to debt. Now that we've gotten some of the language down, proceeds, principal, interest, amortizing versus non-amortizing loans, we can play a little. For example, Debt represents a contract between the lender and you, the borrower. If you break the contract, you are likely in for a world of hurt. So in a sense, debt creates unavoidable fixed costs for your business. So if you borrow, you need to make sure you'll be able to make the payments. And for startups, there is a lot of uncertainty already, so it may not be the right tool at the very beginning of your venture, but it may become more appropriate later on. Also, sometimes the interest rate is fixed, and sometimes the interest rate can rise and fall, and so the size of your payments may be at the mercy of a future unpredictable interest rate. Moreover, the lender may put restrictions on your business to make sure that you don't take unnecessary risks with the money. So after all this, why would anyone want to borrow? Well, debt does not require you to give up any of your equity in the business. Also, the rate that the lender charges you is almost always going to be cheaper than what all the other funding sources expect for a rate of return. And finally, there are debt funding sources that may not have the same stringent requirements because they may be subsidized by another group, such as an industry trade group or government agency. For example, you may find a government lending program, and the government agency may make the interest payments for a little while until you get your feet under you.